Hello, everybody, and welcome to the OK Boomer Show. This is a super special edition, and I have my best mate in the world calling in from Sydney, Australia, introducing John Maclean. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Dave.
How are you, mate?
Mate, I'm great. I'm missing my buddy.
It's been a while, huh? It's this COVID stuff sucks that you're locked down in Australia and I'm locked down here in Denver, but we have technology so we can talk.
Yeah, I'm grateful for technology. It allows us to still communicate, but nothing beats the face to face.
Hey, so this is a really exciting couple of weeks for you, and the reason for getting together is you've just launched a new book on change.
Yeah, so I thought, I've been through, you and I have been through a lot of that in our lives and our journeys, and it was kind of this piece around, John tells stories for a living, and obviously on transformational change. But the question was often asked, can you give me the secret sauce, or can you give me something that I can understand the steps, ABCs, to understand the change, and therefore I can apply those changes to myself and to my teams. So we finally put something together to help that.
Yeah, I think it's great. I enjoyed reading the book, and it's a 64-page, really quick read, but cuts right to the chase. This is your fourth book, right?
Yeah, number four, which is kind of crazy thinking about, the first one back in the day, you recall sucking the marrow out of life and being inspired by the movie Dead Poets Society. And you and I have been so fortunate to meet the late Robert Williams, which was a real treat. But yeah, here we are, book number four. This is just a small handbook, and the handbook addresses the 5 points of changes that I've applied, coming from a hospital bed all those years ago to where we are today.
Great. So, look, those people that are tuning in here, this is going to be a fairly short summary of John and my relationship over the past, I think it's 26 years, John,
Yeah.
that we've known each other. So we'll go into a bit of a history, then we'll go into the book, and we'll have five more mini episodes on each of the chapters. So today's an overview, a welcome, and just introducing the world to you, John, especially here in the US. I know you're an Australian legend and icon. The US, those that are in the field of triathlon and specifically Ironman would know you. Um, but how do you want to do this? Do you want me to introduce you and what you've done, or would you be so gracious as to actually tell us who you are and what you've done?
Well, I mean, us as Aussies, and that's where the OK Boomer piece came from. We like to be understated. I think if I was to share my journey, I'm someone who used to play rugby league or football here in this part of the world. Had an accident, got hit by a truck. There's a good example of change. Fortunate enough to survive, and then having some great people in and around me, including your good self, to encourage me to make the most of the cards that were dealt as a wheelchair athlete. And then we took on some challenges. So I was so lucky to have you a part of most of those challenges. So I guess that would be my interpretation of my story.
Yeah, so again, very humble John. So let's just break it down a little bit. I met John when he had just completed his second attempt at the Hawaiian Ironman unsuccessfully, was asked to finish the course, came back a third year and completed an able-bodied time, which was his ultimate goal at the beginning. So consequence is that he's in the Ironman Hall of Fame, and I was lucky enough to make his induction speech in Kona the year he was put into the Hall of Fame. So that in its own right is a pretty significant achievement on any scale. Went on to become the first wheelchair athlete to swim the English Channel. Again, I was lucky enough to be asked to be his support swimmer, and somehow he talked me into actually doing that myself. So we did that together a couple of years later. Represented Australia at the Olympics and the Paralympics, finishing with a silver medal in Beijing in adaptive rowing pairs, male and female. I was in Beijing that day. That was a great day, John, in many regards. Disappointing because I know you wanted gold, but nevertheless, what a stage to compete on.
Yeah, it was wonderful to represent my second sport in terms of Olympic, Paralympic level. The Olympic level, just to help everyone understand, how does that happen as a wheelchair athlete? There was a demonstration event at the Sydney Olympic Games for wheelchair racing, men's 1500 metres. So that's how I was able to be a part of the Sydney Olympic Games. And obviously after that was the Paralympic Games in wheelchair racing under the umbrella of athletics. And then we're fortunate enough quite some years later, in 2007, to be introduced to the sport of adaptive rowing, first time to be included in the Paralympic program in Beijing. So my rowing partner and I had lofty heights, became second at the World Championships 2007, and therefore, it's always about stretching ourselves and believing that we can take that next step up. And what is that next step? And for us, it was to see whether it was possible to get onto the #1 podium. And we went pretty close. So 0.89, we came second to China. So that was a wonderful result for us in a short period of time to come together as a team, to have that opportunity to A, represent, and to B, get onto the podium.
Yeah, so I mean, John, you've changed my life. I've always say to people, I've never had a bad day since I met you. I think just knowing you and how much of a inspiration and a change agent you are, I'm really excited about talking about the book. I did want to go back maybe to the first 3 books really briefly. The first 3 books really about you and your journey and personal insights. Tell me a little bit about that. You mentioned sucking the marrow out of the life. We did meet Robin Williams at a triathlon in California, the CAF event, which was truly amazing. What was your headline out of that book?
Well, I think it's always important to start at the start. So, as a little boy, I dreamed about being an athlete. That was my dream, gazing out the classroom window. Maybe I should have paid more attention to the chalkboard back in the day. And, I had these huge, big, aspirational, blue sky kind of dreams. And I thought, I used to go and watch the local football team here, the professional football team, and we used to get dressed up in the colours of the team. And, I was a little fan and obviously was just in awe of those athletes. And then the day came for me to actually run onto the field and then become one of those athletes. So that's where the blue sky dream started. It was so wonderful to have little boys and girls, come up to you and ask you for autographs and those kinds of things. So as I was that little boy many years before, hoping that someone might take the time to do that for me. So it's kind of interesting how that pays forward. I was out training, as you know, for the triathlon when I got hit by the truck, and therefore this whole change bit. And then, I just wanted to be seen as equal. I didn't want to be seen as, less than anybody else, because that certainly was not the case before my accident. And therefore, what could life look like? And my late father, who I miss, posed the right question at the right time. And the question was, you would know, David, because we're very close. Son, how far can you go? So it was essentially saying, let go of yesterday, the running, the football, all of that, close that door, and let's open up the door to see what is possible for you to move forward with the cards that you have been dealt. And that then opened up to, dreaming again and thinking, okay, so what could life look like for me? And coincidentally, I wanted to go back and do the triathlon I was training for as a wheelchair athlete, which, we managed to do that. And then I saw the Hawaiian Ironman on television, and this is kind of 1994. And this whole notion of like, wow, a fellow Australian had won the race, a dear friend of both of ours and mentor in the sport of Ironman in Greg Welsh. But the other thing that happened was equally interesting for me. There was a wheelchair athlete participating, and he missed the cutoff time for the bike section. So there's 2 sides here. The first side is, do you get excited about the potential and therefore, go and take this race on, or do you sit back and watch it again the next year? And for me, I wanted to take on the challenge. So I guess, looking back at the first book, Sucking the Marrow Out of Life, kind of went to 2005. And, and you and I had done a lot of stuff, including Ironmans and channels. And therefore, I thought that chapter had closed. And what an apt title that was, Sucking the Marrow Out of Life. I was inspired, as we all need to be inspired, motivated to, continue to move forward. And watching that movie really kind of spoke to me as a viewer, going, carpe diem, this seize the day piece. And it was just kind of resonating in my head around, get out there and have a go and make a contribution. So that was the kind of first book, Sucking the Marrow. And then the following book after that was Full Circle, because at that stage, my kind of life story had kind of come, and I had the opportunity to speak to companies and, what are the business messages that you could deliver in that space. So that was Full Circle. And then, as you know, I was lucky enough to be at the right time, at the right place to meet the right person in 2013. That was Ken Ware.
Yeah,
and
so
where it came up.
let's stop right there because I want to put my own little kind of spin on this. So obviously John and I are pretty close. We speak to each other fairly regularly. Doesn't matter where we are in the world, and I tend to be more outside of Australia than inside of Australia. And so John always sends me little videos of, hey, I did his speaking engagement. Oh, by the way, John's an amazing motivational speaker. So if you need a corporate speaker out there, then this is your guy. Um, but he sent me this video, and I remember this as though it was yesterday. John, this was like 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah, so that's kind of looking at 2013 is when we met.
Right.
So
Yeah. So 7 years ago. And John sent me this little snippet of a video, and I know I can't swear on this, but I did swear at the time. But John was walking, and so to me, after knowing John, always in a wheelchair, and somebody that I'd had the pleasure of carrying, either into the water or out of the water, or into a race start or something, I was just completely gobsmacked. I couldn't believe it. So the highlight is John, after being in a wheelchair for 25 years, was walking again. So John, talk me through that.
yeah, so this is a good piece in terms of how we limit ourselves and what we normally do as people. So we all live in bubbles. And I guess I was in the bubble of, John Maclean, wheelchair athlete for a very long time. And, just so lucky. And again, through the sport of Ironman, Pete Jacobs, an Australian friend of ours who won the race in 2012, had gone to see Ken where he was injured. And went up to see Ken, and he had this wonderful result very quickly. So Peter kind of said, hey, you should go and see this guy. And my mindset at the time was I was going to focus towards Rio in a new sport. I'm a fan of change. And when I had an opportunity to meet with Ken and going through his therapy, he said, what do you want? And I thought that was a beautiful question to actually stop in time going, well, what do I want? When's the last time someone asked that question of me? And I thought, well, I want to walk. It wasn't anything like a gold medal, or it was, I want to walk. And he said, okay, let's see what's possible. So with my injury being incomplete, incomplete means the spinal cord, which is connected to our brain as part of our nervous system, was damaged, absolutely, but there was still some sparing of the pathway. So I could hobble on crutches on my left side. And then I got into the bubble of playing wheelchair athlete, and therefore that's where I moved and the language that I spoke for a long time. And then, we kind of broke the bubble, saying, I no longer want to be that one. I want to change it. I want to see what John Maclean, to get the wheelchair piece. What can John Maclean do? And then that's when we kind of started to shift and going through the therapy and just trying to understand and explore letting go again, or this piece of letting go, to see what's possible. So we were at the beach, because it's more important, it's better to fall on the sand than it is onto the road. And we just explored and seen what was possible. And, I was able to put, with existing paralysis, that hasn't changed, but the mindset had changed. And therefore, we started to see what was possible. And I tried to walk, and I took a few steps and fell over. And then I went back to the start line and said, we'll just make some changes. And then I tried to walk again, and a little bit further, fell over, back to the start line, another change. So this constant piece on changing. And then I had this wonderful experience to be able to walk on the beach after 25 years with my wife, and which was very special. But you can see the importance of letting go of the wheelchair athlete piece just to see what's possible, and therefore for all of us. And Dave, I love this piece around finding your line. Let me give you an example. So I think in sport, it's safe to say that Usain Bolt got very close to his line. Very close. I would say Michael Jordan had gotten close to his, Tiger Woods, etc., etc. And in business, maybe we can use Steve Jobs, maybe we can use Satya Nadella from Microsoft. I mean, there are a lot of people in business that have gotten close to their lines. And therefore, the question is posed to all of us, how close are we to our own personal lines? And I'm going to say we're a long way off. So that whole piece around learning to walk again, and now I've got carbon fiber leg brace technology to assist, my life is very different because I had the courage to take those steps and to embrace the change. So a little bit about going from John Maclean wheelchair athlete to John Maclean learning to walk again and take on some challenges in that regard.
Yeah, so the visual here on the background, this is you coming out of bike transition into the walk run at the Penrith Triathlon. Again, significant story. This is the triathlon that you were training for to in the off season of the rugby season to keep fit, and you got hit by a truck. This is the triathlon that once you kind of recovered, you did with Big Jono, right? And you did it in your day chair. I think the course was closed and you were still wheeling across the line. The sun was down. So you did that, and then when you were walking, now you kind of rang your buddies, including me, and said, "Hey, I'm going to go back and do that triathlon as an able-bodied athlete." And so we rode the bike. You rode a regular bike for 40 k's. The swim obviously is easy because you're an English Channel swimmer, and then you nutted out 10 k's of walking, which was just a huge effort after being in a wheelchair for 25 years. So take me through that moment, right, of either coming out of bike transition into the walk, which was obviously going to be the hardest of the three legs, so to speak, and then crossing the finish line with Amanda and Jack.
Yeah, I'll give you the elevated version of that. So where did that start is, I guess, the first question. That started again for a guy who wanted to start to dream again, because the little boy within is still alive and well, and therefore when I got back on my feet, although that's the hardest thing to do, is the walking piece. I started to dream again. I thought, what could I do and what could that look like? And, Dad's words ringing in my ear about, son, how far I could go. And having a foundation here in Australia helping kids in wheelchairs, that's been going now for a long time, back to when we swam the English Channel. I always wanted to inspire kids in wheelchairs as well, but the dream was, is it possible to cross the finish line, as you said, 26 years later, holding hands with Amanda and Jack, my wife and son? Okay, that's a pretty big dream for someone who's been in the chair for 25 years. But how do you kind of unpack that, and what does that then look like? So as you said, the swim was a whole lot of fun because you and I had both swum the channel and were familiar with being in water. So there was a 1 kilometre swim, which was over pretty quickly. Then I kind of crawled out, because I do need support in terms of the leg brace. Was next to a chair, tried myself, put on my leg braces and walking poles, and made our way to the bike. And I got to say, that's as much fun as I've had in a very, very long time, having the ability to get back on a bike, given that I got hit by a truck on a bike all those years ago, and then to be able to ride a bike with my buddies, which no one would have thought was possible. But again, it's opening up the opportunities, not closing them down. And when I got off the bike, it was 30 kilometres, and that was then the start of the day, because it was always going to be, is it possible to cover 10 kilometres or 6 miles with the aid of those walking poles. And it hurt the first step, because now my whole body is coming through my legs opposed to kind of sitting. So each step hurt. And I recall just being focused around continuing to take the next step. If I can take the next step eventually, that would mean that the dream would come true. So there were some challenges, as you might recall. A, it was a very hot day. B, this Forrest Gump affair, for those who are familiar with that movie, the more that I continued to unfold the journey, the more people started to join the experience behind, which was encouraging. But there was a point, I think it was about halfway, where the pain was quite intense, to the degree that I kind of sat down. I took off the braces, I took off the leggings to kind of help protect the skin, and my feet were raw, because they had not. I think 4 kilometres was the most I'd done in training. So to put another 6 kilometres on top of that was always going to be the challenge. And having a world-class team around me, including your good self, and people that have done well in this country around kind of sports. One of the guys that was there was a guy called Steve Moore, who Dave, who was the captain of the Australian cricket team. And when he looked at my feet, he looked at me and he goes, "You're right, play on." So in his world, that meant, okay, there's a bit of discomfort, but keep going. And then having you around and having others around just really encouraged me to continue to take the steps. So, 3 hours and 31 minutes later, covering 6 miles, it was very, very difficult. It was a mixture of emotions around, all these people have come to support me. I think all the athletes that have raced as well, many hours before, I had to kind of stuck around with their family and friends in the grandstand to see whether the guy could cross the finish line. And I believe all those people willed me to the finish line. And it was so special to see that dream unfold. And it's lovely to kind of look back now on video or pictures and see you front and center of that when Amanda and I and Jack crossed the line. So I guess without a doubt, that's been the highlight for me as a father and a husband, and obviously generating lots of money for Kids with Wheelchairs as part of that. So I think as an athlete, it was the Hawaiian Ironman was kind of my sporting moment. But as a father and a husband and a friend to you and others, we had that opportunity as a collective team that we crossed that line together. It wasn't just Amanda, Jack, and I; it was all of us. So that was such a special moment, but I had to let go of so much in order for us to cross that line.
Yeah, I went through the photos on my iPhone to grab this one, and I did catch the photos of your feet at the halfway point, and it was disgusting. You had no flesh on the bones on your ankle and your feet, so the pain was extraordinary. But as usual, you push through it. So let's transition now to the book. Right, great title, Change, a constant challenge. Uh, Very different to your previous three books. Why did you write this one?
Yeah, so the other one was, if anyone's interested in the story, there's books to kind of share the story as it's incrementally growing. Um, and the How Far Can You Go book was really special, released in the US and here in Australia, because, again, that's what my father had said to me, and I wanted to honour him with that title. And that kind of encapsulates all those pieces to 2014. And having that opportunity to present to companies globally, which is a huge honour for someone who grew up where I grew up and had those experiences. And we're all aware that COVID hit us. I literally got hit by a truck, and metaphorically, the world has been hit by a truck with COVID. So, what are you going to do with the time that you've got in in your own place? And obviously, everything now going online, it's a very different connection to having people in person. And I just thought about putting a book together around the steps. So, John, take me through the steps in order for me to change as an individual or as a father or as a corporate leader or, you know, being in charge of my team. What would that look like? Give us the formula. So I started to kind of really sit down and take a step back and go, okay, what are the steps and what would it look like? So it needed to be very clear to me because it's one thing for me to go and you might say, which you did previously, John, I'm going to come up with a challenge and we're going to go and do it. Um, and we go and do it. That's kind of innate for us. But I thought, if you're going to put something together, um, it needs to be quite succinct. So don't go into a story, just have the steps. And therefore, changing constant challenge now made sense to me to kind of take that time that I've had to be able to put a handbook together. So if someone's struggling in the course of change, they can then open up that book or they can revert back to that book. So that's why I wanted to put that together to help others manage change because change is difficult. Most of us don't want to do it, therefore we don't. But now, you look at life, and I think there's two pieces. One, there's forced change, as in, I was forced to change getting hit by a truck, and now all of us are forced to change due to the virus, this pandemic. So, it's keeping our minds open to finding ways to help and support others, and this book's been really good in that.
Yeah, it's a great read. It's about just over an hour read, and it's really concise, 5 steps. And knowing you as well as I do, John, and knowing you when you've taken on something brand new, I can really see you going through this process. So one of the headlines you have in the book is "See it, believe it, achieve it." Right? What does that mean to you?
Well, okay. Simply, it's identified, it's backing yourself, and it's taking the first step. So, if you look at some of the things that you and I have taken on, let's call that Ironman to start with. So, what is it? Well, it's a whole Ironman, and then you can see it. So that's what that is. Uh, do you believe it? Because if you don't, I can guarantee you're not going to get through it. But if you do, that's a great starting point. So you believe that it's possible, and therefore you start to activate towards that. And achieve it means that you get to the start line and you cross the finish line. See it, believe it, achieve it, and therefore you can use that for most aspects of your individual journeys, both business and personal.
Yeah, no, it's great, and I think they're really strong little kind of nuggets or mantras that you can put on the wall on any challenge, right? And there are challenges big and small, right? We face challenges every day. We face change every day. So, how do we get through it? So let's go through the 5 steps, the 5 M's of the Maclean journey to change. And we'll do this at a pretty high level. And then we're going to come back and we'll do 5 separate series on each one of them. So the first one is MAP. A goal without a plan is just a wish.
Yeah, so okay, we're talking about change. So, do you want to change? Yes or no? If it's no, then keep on doing what you're doing. If it's yes, then okay, so what is that? Let's map out the plan. Okay, so what's the plan? Well, I want to change, I want to lose weight, or I want to change my headspace in terms of wanting to change an attitude. Okay, so let's map out the plan. Let me just highlight with a great example for you and I, David, the English Channel. Okay, so let's map that out. What is that? Get a map of the English Channel. There is England, there is France. What's the intent? To swim the English Channel. Okay, so what do I need as a team to help me to accomplish that goal? Well, you need a coach. You need support team. Okay, so there's the map. Understand what it is that you're looking to change.
So the second one is mindset. Open the window of your mind, allow the fresh air, new lights, and new truths to enter.
Okay, so this is a really deep one. We spend a lot of time here, but we won't. So what is mindset? It's the ability to either talk yourself into something or talk yourself out of something. Okay, so what does that mean? Okay, so you have 2 conversations in your head. Every person does all the time. We have about 50 random thoughts a day. So mindset is the ability to manage the conversation. Yeah, the positives have to override the negatives. And therefore, there's a lot of psychology involved in that. So there's the mindset to switch into the belief system that it's possible and make sure that the positives are overriding the negatives.
Awesome. The third one is mentor. The delicate balance of mentoring someone is not creating them in your own image, but giving them the opportunity to create themselves.
Okay, so here's a good example. Let's stay on the English channel. We have multiple examples, but I and you might recall we were lucky enough to meet a chap called Des Renford. So Des Renford, here in Australia, retired as the king of the channel. He had won the channel 19 times. So what's that about? It's about someone who has experience and knowledge that you do not. Okay, so you have to take that first step to get in touch with a mentor because you're asking he or she for support, and therefore by asking relevant questions to gain insights that you don't already have, they can empower with your journey. So as a mentor, it's critical.
Perfect. Number 4, motivation. Some
Yeah, I
people
think
some people dream of success while others wake up and work hard at it.
okay. So let's use an example here that both you and I can relate to. Um, what is motivation? It's that little extra push that continues the journey. That's what motivation is to me. So maybe it's a piece of music. Maybe it's words of wisdom. My father's words are a really good example. So if you and I are doing something like an Ironman or an English Channel, it's all lovely to have the motivation at the start because that natural energy is already there because we've got other athletes. But where you need the motivation is back towards the end, not at the start. When you're kind of trudging through a marathon off the back end of riding, 112 miles, you need that motivation to get you home. So that's where motivation comes in for me, just to tap into that little extra piece that's going to continue to support your journey.
The visual that just came into my mind was that one of you in your English Channel training when you're at the lakes and the water temperature was 9 degrees Celsius. So that's actually 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And you had to brace yourself to jump in the water to swim, which for anybody needs some motivation. So you're an incredible man, John. And the last one, momentum. Unwavering incremental change can create remarkable and monumental results.
Yeah, so let's look at momentum. And again, we've got lots of examples to share. So let's call it the English Channel again, just popped into my head. So we're starting off as part of our map. So, okay, we want to swim the English Channel. It's a very big undertaking to work towards. So if you don't believe it's possible, well, then it isn't because you're not going to get in the water. But if you do, then you can start to take your first stroke. And therefore, it's really important to measure your progress. Meaning, okay, I got in here and I started off with swimming a mile. And now it's part of my training because I know what it is that I want to do in this channel. I'm halfway. I can look back on my journey. I've mapped it out. I've put all the incremental pieces in place. And if I can see that I was here, I'm now here, and I'm encouraged to keep on going. So momentum builds towards your success. It's important to see where you've come from, where you're at, and where you're going. That's that added encouragement with momentum to get you to the finish line.
Yeah, the one thing that I've really, and I'm not sure which bucket it goes into, the thing that's always really inspired me and I've learned a lot from you is how you surround yourself with really positive people that are enrolled in that journey with you. And by definition, that group gives you a lot of momentum, right? It's almost like it's not just by yourself, but you're all marching forward to an objective, right, or a goal. So whether that's the Ironman or whether that's the English Channel, but you're, and it's partly mentors, it's partly mateship, it's partly friends, but a lot of these things you can't do by yourself, right? I mean, it's the solo effort is up to you, but it does take a village, right? It does take a team, it does take a group of people around you to get to the finish line. Talk
Yeah,
talk to
so
me about that. Does that fit into any of these, or is that a
absolutely. I would put that into the bucket of mindset. And let me give you two examples of that. There's one example of self. So have no one else in this equation. It's just you. Okay. So now knowing that we fight ourselves constantly, so it's a piece around an accelerator and a brake. Like, can I do it? Can I do it? Should I do it? Should I do it? These are the conversations that we have by ourselves. So there's that piece. So get on top of that under mindset. The next bit, absolutely, is surround yourself with the right people. In terms of building a team to chase the endeavour, you've got to have people who lift you up to take you forward. There are two different types of people in the world that I've experienced. The ones that lift you up and the ones that pull you backwards. So they don't want you to do success. Their conversations around their mindsets are non-supportive. And therefore, good attracts good and bad attracts bad. Often people are unaware of the dialogue they're having, so replaying the same record day in and day out. Here's an example. I remember one lady in terms of my preparation for the English Channel many years ago at the local mall. She just pulled me aside and was starting to talk to me, and I was trying to think, do I know this person? Because she's telling me all this negative stuff. And eventually I had to stop and say, excuse me, have we met? Do I know you? And she said, no, you're in a wheelchair, you understand. So there's someone who's taking up time and just wanting to pull me backwards and tell me that I'm in a wheelchair, I'm in pain, and her world was really dark. Although clearly I always want to help people if they're wanting to help themselves. So back to the importance of people in and around us. You want to surround yourself with people who lift you up and take you forward to chase dreams and desires and goals to make life as best we can make it. So there's blue sky versus dark sky. What choice? What do you choose? So for me, and you're the best example, I want to be around people who lift me up and say, okay, let's go and chase these dreams. And by me having the courage to come to you back in the days with Gatorade, I wanted to have a documentary to inspire kids in wheelchairs. You're on board and you're a great guy, so therefore, A, we've funded a documentary which I'm happy to share with everyone if they're interested. And B, it was like, now I have a support system. So it wasn't just having a business meeting. Very quickly for me, I introduced that you're a great guy and I want to have you in my life. And I've been better for it.
Yeah, me too, buddy. So let's just wrap a bow around this one for today. And as we said, we're going to do 5 more episodes and go deeper on each of the M's. But quickly, John, for those out there, where can you apply this? Right, the change. Obviously, there's career, there's home life, there's projects. I mean, where can you apply it?
I think you can apply in all aspects of life. But all of us need a hand along the way. You can look at any, and I guess sports being my world, any elite athletes had a team around them. So, you need a coach, you need all the machinations of support to encourage you to be your best. So I think we can apply it in all aspects of life. And I'll put it in a way, Dave, that the younger version of myself growing up in a tough area, a little boy or girl could pick it up and kind of get it. I didn't want to make it too difficult. So we're all facing change. No, it's not. So I'll put it into a format that we can all digest, and we can also revert back to people if we're struggling.
Yeah, I think this has a really powerful application to the business world. That's what I'm excited about, bringing this to people in the business world, in terms of how you can put the 5 M's of change to either, how to handle a big project, right? How to, achieve that career goal that you've set yourself, how to be better in life. So yeah, I agree with you. Lots of great applications. Hey, where can you get this book, John?
So sounds like a plug. What do they say? At all good bookstores? I think it's different. So there's the people in Australia here. We can get that both on a physical version. There's an ebook version. There's also an audio version. So I guess my website's probably the best place to drive people to, Dave, just in terms of understanding, my background and my story in terms of presenting, and also access to the book. So, it's out there. It is possible. I guess the best thing is the ebook is probably the easiest for most, to go and have a look at that on Amazon, and you'll find a copy. Change, a constant challenge.
Yeah, I've downloaded it on my iPhone, so I've got it. And thank you for sending me the copy from Australia. Yeah, you can go straight to Amazon. I guess everybody does. Type in "change, a constant challenge." You can get the downloadable version, or you can order it. I think we might have cleaned them out of the printed versions, John. So expect a reorder. It's been a great 45, 50 minutes with you, John. More to come. So everybody out there, subscribe to the OK Boomer Show. We're going to do some follow-ups with John, and we'll go deeper into the 5 sections: map, mindset, mentor, motivation, and momentum. So each one of those, lots of stories. I know John and I can go pretty deep on some of our experiences, and we'll keep it clean and keep it funny. But please sign in. John, thank you for getting up so early in Sydney. It's been a real pleasure to have you on the show. Joshua, thanks for hosting us and keeping the OK Boomer Show alive. Stay tuned. We will go deeper into the change, a constant challenge. John, love you. Love your work. And this book is a gift to the world, especially for those young folk in business and trying to maneuver the world of change. Over and out. Speak to you soon.
Thanks, buddy.
Cheers.